sure that they can thrive as families and in a thriving community.
But I will push you on this because, again, it comes back to the knowledge that you have for Salford and the people watching this. So where are the highest crime areas in Salford?
Well, again, I said I don't want to single out particular areas. We all know that there's problems in places like Pendleton and Ordsall and that, and the local people know about that. In fact, crime in Ordsall is not as bad as in some other areas, believe it or not. But I am absolutely opposed to singling out areas and saying this is a high crime area and the people in that are bad, and this is a low crime area, the people in that are good. That is not the approach that any commissioner should take. Every area is different across the city and across Salford. Some will have priorities in relation to drugs or to gun crime. To another area 2 miles up the road, that might be completely alien to the people there. They have no experience of that particular type of crime. So you can't put people in silos and say those bad, those good. Because in every area where there is bad things happening, I've always found the majority are still decent, good people, and they want somebody to do something about it. And it's that leadership that people are crying out for. And they've not had it with the police authority. Hopefully they will have it if they pick the right commissioner. It's not about being a budget manager. This is not about...
But you will have to set the budget.
Well, yes, and there is a chief executive and there is a financial executive and there is a whole team of people who you sit down with to discuss the budget. Most of the budget is accounted for. There are fixed bills you have to pay, there are rates of rent and stuff like that. Within that, then, you have to try and find flexibility. For instance, a couple of nights ago, I had a meeting with Ed Davey, who's the Secretary of State for Energy, and he said to me that he would give Cabinet support to any effort by Greater Manchester Police to form a cooperative with other forces in order to negotiate energy prices. Now, I've relayed that to the head of GMPA and said, you will have Cabinet support, and that can save you as much as 30% of the force's electricity bill and its gas bill. Now, last year, that was £4.3 million. So there's a potential saving there of over £1 million just by forces combining together and negotiating for the best price for the power. Now, those are the sort of things that a commissioner can be driving, so that that money, those savings, can then be ploughed back into policing and victim services. So it's not a case of looking around to lose bobbies on the beat. It's looking at how can we improve policing services, get rid of some of the waste and the non-essentials that we currently get dragged into, and focusing on the fight against crime. And there are still lots of things that can be improved. For instance, 64% of all police statements where somebody is arrested never see the inside of a court. In fact, the magistrates aren't even allowed to see them in case it colours their judgment. Now, those statements take hours of police time to compile. And my argument is that frontline police officers are not the best people to be taking those. They should be staying on the front line, and there are other ways to get those statements. And we need to look at whether the bulk of those statements are ever needed. Police take statements from people and write statements in relation to incidents when nobody's been arrested. They get filed. And the figure of how often they will be seen rises to almost 100%. They're filed away because somewhere down the road in a year's time somebody might get arrested or might come in and say, yes, I did that, so they can fish it out. But the vast majority of those take hours and hours and hours to compile, and then they're filed away and they're never seen. There's got to be a better way to do that, and I have proposals on how we can do that without taking officers off the front line. There are other ways you can save money. We have a tactic that's used by professional criminals, and Salford professional criminals are no different, where they plead not guilty all the way up to the door of the court. They drag the witnesses, they drag police officers off the beat, they drag victims down to the court, and then at the very last minute, when they're sure that everybody's there, they then try and say, I'll plead guilty. And then go into the court and try and argue that they should get a discount on the sentence because they've saved the victim the ordeal of giving evidence. Now, that's all a huge waste on the public purse. They don't have to pay for that waste at present. They'll get a sentence from the court in relation to the offence they've committed. As Commissioner, I will lobby to have a change in the rules to say that I can recover those costs as a civil debt. It'll cut out a lot of this practice going on, but it also means that we will get money back from the offenders. And I don't care if it's a £5 a week after your benefits. We're getting money coming back into the system. It means all those officers, and sometimes it's a couple of hundred a day, who are sitting in courts, can get back out on the beat. So that's what we need to look at, is where can we change the current practices to get officers back out fighting crime and not doing things that the system forces them to do because the system's inefficient.
Another of the main powers that you'll be dealing with is the power to hire and fire the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester. So what professional experience do you have in that area? I mean, this is a man who's spent his whole professional life working up to this point. So how do you figure into that?
Well, it's not as if you can come in one morning with a bad head on and just decide, right, that's it, you're fired. To get rid of a Chief Constable is a major issue. And the Commissioner, despite what people say, can't do that on his own because it has to be authorised by the crime panel, which is a separate panel that oversees what the Commissioner is doing. So it isn't a sort of thing you would do as a knee-jerk. There would have to be serious evidence of either malpractice or misconduct or a serious failing in delivering what they were required to do. I don't envisage that happening with the current Chief Constable. And to be quite honest, if it did happen, it would be a major thing. It is not a decision that anybody would take lightly. But at the end of the day, the authority to do that is given to the Commissioner through the mandate he gets from the people who've elected them. And that is the final authority.
As part of your manifesto, you have the idea of assistant commissioners for various areas.
That's right.
Can you just expand on that for us?
Well, this is not a job that one person can do on their own. There's no way that one person can listen to the whole of Greater Manchester and 2.6 million people. Even the Chief Constable has a deputy and 6 assistant Chief Constables, and he works 16-hour days most times. So it's an enormous job. Now, you can do the job badly and not spend that amount of time, but my view is if you're going to be a listening organisation and you're going to be reaching out into the community and speaking to as many people as possible and getting their views and their issues back, that has to be on a structured basis. There has to be people whose responsibility it is to get that information. Now, I'm also aware of the fact that times are hard, and the model that I've come up with has already been approved by Victim Support. The Chief Executive of Victim Support, Javed Khan, has already signed up to say that if I appoint an Assistant Commissioner for Victims, he will pay their salary. So it won't come out of Greater Manchester's budget, it won't come out of the policing budget. But it will mean there is somebody in the room when decisions are being made who will argue the case for victims, who is a professional chosen by them, not by me, and they will be in that room and they will be able to advise and consult with me on the best way forward. And I see that being replicated in other areas, in dealing with women, in dealing with young people, in dealing with older people, dealing with diversity and with the minority communities, all people who feel at the moment that perhaps the police aren't listening to them or pay lip service to their particular needs. And that's why it's important that there is somebody to represent them.